Hi, this is Kavita. Once again in front of you with obstetrics and gynecology classes. Today, let us deal about abnormal uterine action. Abnormal uterine action is any deviation of the normal pattern of uterine contractions affecting the course of labor is designated as disordered or abnormal uterine action. See, before telling about the abnormal, first we should know what is normal. Normal uterine contraction means it's having a pattern. The pattern is in such a way that the upper segment of the uterus will be contracting and retracting, while the lower segment of the uterus will be getting thinned and it will get dilated. That's the normal thing. So the upper segment will be contracting and the lower segment will be relaxing and dilating. And same way, the number of contractions, that is towards the end of the pregnancy, the number of contractions will be increasing and the duration of contraction also will be increasing, but at the same time the interval in between the contraction, that will be decreasing. So this is the normal pattern of uterine contraction. If there is any deviation from this normal pattern, we are calling it as abnormal uterine action. Now let us see the classification of this abnormal uterine action. It can be classified into the abnormal uterine action which is following the normal polarity and abnormal uterine action with the abnormal polarity. That is, if it is following that normal pattern, upper segment contraction and lower segment relaxation, and frequency and number of contractions are increasing. If it is following that pattern, that is with normal polarity. If it is not following that pattern, that is with abnormal polarity. Again, we can see the contractions with the normal polarity. In the case of contractions with the normal polarity, if the contractions are weak or infrequent, that is known as uterine inertia, and that cause ineffective uterine contraction. And in the case of normal polarity, and if the contractions are excessive contractions are there, means it is also an abnormal thing. And if it is associated with obstruction, that is if obstruction like cephalopelvic disproportion or pelvic tumors or any growth, such conditions are there, means one thing, it leads to hypertonic uterus, that is excessive uterine action, and second thing, it leads to the formation of Bandit's ring or retraction ring. All those things we will see in the next videos or in the next slides. And if it is without any obstruction, that leads to precipitate labor. So these classifications, what is precipitate labor, what is tonic uterine contraction, what is hypertonic uterus, what is uterine inertia, all those things we will be discussing in the coming slides. This is the detailed classification of abnormal uterine contractions with abnormal polarity. In that first one is spastic lower segment. Already I have told you that when the upper segment is contracting, the lower segment of the uterus is supposed to relax. But here what will happen means the lower segment of the uterus also will get contracted, or spasm of the lower segment of the uterus will be there. And next is colicky uterus. Colicky uterus means actually in the normal pattern of contraction, after a contraction, a short period of relaxation should be there. But here, that period of relaxation won't be there. Uterus will be contracting in a speedy manner without the relaxation period. And this is asymmetry uterine contraction. That is the next classification. See, already we know the symmetry of uterine contraction, that is the upper segment is contracting and lower segment is relaxing. But here what will happen, that symmetry or that fundal dominance won't be there. Any of the area, whether it may be lateral area or sometimes it may be lower portion, like that it will start to contract without any organized pattern. And next is constriction ring. Usually there is no ring-like structure in the uterus if you are observing, but here I have told you the difference between the contraction pattern of upper and lower segment. Here what will happen means when this upper and lower segment is contracting, actually there is no clear cut mark for dividing upper and lower segment. But here what will happen means only when it starts to function or when it starts to contract, we can differentiate or we can make out the difference, that is upper segment is contracting and lower segment is the portion where it is relaxing, that is the lower segment. Here what will happen means a ring-like structure that is due to the spasm of the muscles, ring-like structure will form usually between the upper and lower segment, that is constriction ring, and this ring-like structure will not dilate and it may block the passage of the baby. Next is generalized tonic contraction, that is complete area of the uterus from the fundus to the cervix, it will contract very vigorously, that is generalized tonic contraction. And next is cervical dystocia, that is inability of the cervix to dilate. We know that during the pregnancy the cervix will be closed, and during the process of labor the cervix will start to dilate. In the first stage of labor the cervix will start to dilate, and by the end of the first stage it will dilate up to 10 centimeter and it allows the passage of the baby. But here what will happen means that dilatation of the cervix will not occur. So these are the ineffective uterine contractions with abnormal polarity. Next, let us see about these ineffective uterine contractions. We have seen some are there with normal polarity, some are there with abnormal polarity. We are going to see about those things in detail. First, let us see about the hypotonic uterine inertia. Here the uterine contractions are infrequent, weak and of short duration. Already I have told you that the normal pattern of uterine contraction should be strong, and towards the end of the pregnancy, that is towards the end of the labor process, its duration is supposed to increase. Duration of the contraction should increase and the frequency of the contraction also should increase. But here that won't happen. Instead of that, infrequently, very weak and short duration contraction will occur. That is the hypotonic uterine inertia. The causes for the hypotonic uterine inertia include, actually the exact cause is unknown, but the general factors or predisposing factors may be primi gravida or elderly primi. Primi gravida means a woman or lady with her first pregnancy. Elderly primi means a lady with her first pregnancy after the age of 30. In that case, what will happen means after the age of 30, we know that muscle capacity may decrease when compared with the youngsters. So that may be a reason for the improper contraction. And next cause is anemia. In the case of anemia also, weakened muscles will be there, or the uterine muscles may not be having the capacity to produce a strong contraction. And next is nervous and emotional anxiety of the mother. These anxiety and nervousness may interfere with the hormone production, and that may interfere with the uterine contraction. Hormonal deficiencies, that is the deficiency of prostaglandin and oxytocin, is another reason. Especially you can see it in the case of induced labor. See, usually the prostaglandin and oxytocin will be produced by the body during the process of labor. So oxytocin is produced by the posterior pituitary and prostaglandin is from the endometrium and from the fetal membranes, that is amnion and chorion. These are the sources of production of oxytocin and prostaglandin. This production will occur only at the end of the pregnancy and at the time of onset of, that is at the time of normal onset of natural onset of labor. But when we are inducing the labor, the body may not start to produce the prostaglandin and oxytocin by itself. Artificially, whatever you are giving, only that will be there. So that may interfere with the progress of labor. And next reason is improper use of analgesics, especially if you are using excessive amount of anesthetics for giving the analgesia, that may suppress the muscles and that may leads to the poor uterine action or hypotonia. Hypotonia means it's the decreased uterine contraction. The local factors for the hypotonic uterine action include over distension of the uterus. That is, it can occur due to polyhydramnios or maybe due to teen pregnancy. In those cases, excessive stretching of the uterine muscles will be there, and that excessive stretching may decrease the capacity of the muscles and that may leads to the hypotonic action. And next is developmental anomalies of the uterus like hypoplasia. That is, from the birth itself, sometimes muscle capacity may be less for some people. Those people may not be having the capacity to contract effectively or produce uterine contractions effectively. And another reason is myoma of the uterus. Tumors or growth of the uterus that may interfere with the uterine contractions, and that also may leads to the hypotonic uterine action. Next is malpresentations, malpositions and cephalopelvic disproportion. That is, if the presenting part is not a well-fitted presenting part, naturally the duration of labor may get prolonged, and when the duration of the labor is getting prolonged, there's a chance for exhaustion. So the muscles also may get exhausted, and that may lead to the hypotonia. That is one reason. And another one, if the presenting part is not a well-fitted presenting part, it will not act directly over the lower segment of the uterus and over the cervix, and that may interfere with the uterine contractions. If it is hitting directly over the cervix, it will produce reflex reaction, and that may stimulate the uterine contraction. That reflex reaction will not occur, so that may interfere with, or that may produce pure contraction. And next one is full bladder and rectum. In the case of full bladder and rectum also, it will interfere with the, or it will block the passage of the baby downward. That is, it is blocking the descent of the baby. So naturally the process of labor may get extended, and when the process of labor is getting extended, the muscles may become exhausted, and that leads to the hypotonia. When the muscles are weak and exhausted, that may produce a hypotonia. Next, let us see the types of hypotonic uterine action. Next is the clinical features of hypotonic uterine inertia. There is a chance for prolongation of the labor due to the weak uterine contraction, and if you are assessing the pattern of uterine contractions, it will be infrequent, weak and of short duration, and cervical dilatation will be slow. Usually the membranes will be intact, and this hypotonic uterine inertia will not produce much complications for the mother and baby, except the prolonged labor. Only the prolonged labor may occur, and due to the prolonged labor, sometimes baby and mother may get the problems. And after the birth of the baby, there is a chance for retention of the placenta, and there is a chance for postpartum hemorrhage. What is the reason means, in the case of prolonged labor, the uterine muscles may get exhausted, and due to that exhaustion, in the postnatal period, the uterus won't contract effectively, so it may not allow the expulsion of the placenta. If effective contractions are there, only easy expulsion of the placenta will occur. So that may lead to the retained placenta. And same way, in the postnatal period, if the uterus is not contracting effectively, there is a chance for bleeding, that is postpartum hemorrhage. Next is tachography. Tachography is the graphical representation of the uterine contractions. And if you are going through that graphical representation, you can see that the waves will be infrequent and the contractions will be with less amplitude or low amplitude. And next is the management. The general measures include, first you should assess the mother and you should exclude the cephalopelvic disproportion, malpresentation, malposition. If such things are there, means you should take measures for managing that condition first. And the first stage of labor should be managed properly, and usually there is a chance for prolonged labor, and due to the prolonged labor there is a chance for infection, so you can start the prophylactic antibiotics. And next is the amniotomy. This is the artificial rupture of the membranes. If you are performing the artificial rupture of the membrane, there is a chance for stimulation of the labor. How means, I already have told you that the prostaglandin is getting produced from the fetal membranes, and when you are rupturing the membrane, it will irritate the membrane, and the membranes may get stimulated. That irritation may stimulate the fetal membrane, and that may stimulate the production of the prostaglandins, and it helps for accelerating the uterine contraction. We know that prostaglandin is producing the uterine contraction, so when the production of prostaglandin is increasing, it will accelerate the uterine contraction. But you should perform amniotomy, or you should perform the artificial rupture of the membrane only if the vaginal delivery is possible, and the cervix should be minimum 3 cm dilated, and the presenting part should be in the lower segment of the uterus. Otherwise, you should not perform the artificial rupture of the membrane. Next is oxytocin. You can give oxytocin. We know the action of oxytocin is also producing uterine contraction. And if there is no contraindication for the oxytocin for mother, you can start the oxytocin 5 units in 500 ml of glucose 5%. And first you should start with the mild dose, you should start with 10 drops per minute, and gradually you can increase it up to you are getting 3 to 4 contractions in 10 minutes. When you are getting 3 to 4 contractions in 10 minutes, you can maintain that dose of oxytocin or maintain the drip rate in that level. Next is operative delivery. If all these measures fails, otherwise also, if you are feeling as like you need to have an additional effort, you can go for the forceps or vacuum delivery, and if it is a breech presentation, you can take the measures for the breech extraction. And you are supposed to do it only if the cervix is fully dilated and if the vaginal delivery is possible. And if all these measures fails, you can go for the cesarean section. If the mother is having a contraindication for oxytocin infusion, or if the fetus is getting fetal distress, all of a sudden if fetal distress is developing, in that cases you can go for the cesarean section. Next condition is hypertonic uterine inertia. The previous one was hypotonic uterine inertia. This is hypertonic uterine inertia, or this is also an uncoordinated uterine action. In that first one is, now we are going to see the types of hypertonic uterine action. In that first one is colicky uterus, and the second one is hyperactive lower uterine segment. Colicky uterus means incoordination of different parts of the uterus. That is, usually I had told you that there will be a coordination between the upper and lower segment, but here that coordination will not be there. And hyperactive lower uterine segment means the dominance. The fundus, actually the uterine fundus is supposed to be hyperactive, but here instead of the fundus, the lower segment of the uterus will become hyperactive, or the lower segment will start to contract more than the upper segment. Next is the clinical features. As like the previous condition, there is a chance for prolongation of the labor, and the uterine contractions may be irregular and may become more painful because of the irregularity of the contractions. In between, the relaxation period will not be there, so more pain will be there for the woman. And back pain also will be there as like in the occipital posterior position. And if you are assessing the intrauterine pressure, the intrauterine pressure will be more than 5 to 10 millimeter of mercury. The normal intrauterine pressure during the contraction is 5 to 10 millimeter of mercury. But here it will be more than that, because the chance for relaxation in between, there is no relaxation is there, so the contraction will be, so the intrauterine pressure will be more. And the cervical dilatation will be slow. There is a chance for premature rupture of the membrane. Chance for fetal and maternal distress is also there. Next is the management of hypertonic uterine inertia. The general measures you are supposed to take as like whatever you have done in the hypotonic uterine inertia. That is, you should assess and you should exclude the possibility of the cephalopelvic disproportion. You should exclude the possibility of malpresentation, small position, all those things. If those things are there, means you should correct that first. And severe pain will be there for the woman, so you can give analgesics and antispasmodics like pethidine. And if it is not managing the pain, you can go for the epidural analgesia. You can go for the cesarean section if the previous methods are, that is, if you are trying for the normal delivery, if you are performing amniotomy, if you are trying for the forceps, vacuum, all those things, and if it fails, you can go for the cesarean section. Otherwise, if cephalopelvic disproportion is there, or if fetal distress is there, or if the cervix is not dilating, you can go for the cesarean section. The next condition is constriction ring or contraction ring. It is a persistent localized annular spasm of the circular uterine muscles. It occurs at any part of the uterus, but usually at the junction between the upper and lower uterine segment. And it can occur in the first stage, second stage, or it can occur even in the third stage of labor also. The causes include malpresentations and malpositions, intrauterine manipulations, example internal cephalic version, if you are performing amniotomy, improper use of or excessive use of oxytocin, and use of oxytocin in the case of hypertonic inertia. And the diagnosis, the condition is more common in primigravida mothers, and frequently it will occur after the colicky uterus. The exact diagnosis is achieved only by feeling the ring with the hand introduced into the cavity. into the uterine cavity. That is, when you are performing the vaginal examination, by using your hands, you can feel the ring inside the uterine cavity. The complications include, if it is occurring in the first stage at the level of the internal os, there is a chance for prolonged first stage. And if the ring occurs around the fetal neck, there is a chance for prolonged second stage. And if it is occurring in the third stage, there is a chance for retained placenta and postpartum hemorrhage. The management include, first you should exclude the possibility of malpresentations, malpositions and disproportion. In the first stage, if you are diagnosing it, you just give pethidine. It may relax the muscles and it may become beneficial. In the second stage, if you are diagnosing it, give general anesthesia, deep general anesthesia, and give amyl nitrate inhalation. This may relax the constriction ring. If the ring is relaxed, immediately after that you should achieve the delivery of the baby. If the ring is not getting relaxed, even after giving amyl nitrate also, you should go for the cesarean section, and by putting a vertical incision in the uterus, you can take the baby out. If it is in the third stage, we can give the deep general anesthesia or amyl nitrate. It may relax the ring and you can go for the manual removal of the placenta. Next one is cervical dystocia, that is difficult dilatation of the cervix or improper dilatation of the cervix. Failure of the cervix to dilate within a reasonable time in spite of good uterine contraction is known as the cervical dystocia. That is failure of the cervix to dilate. The causes for the cervical dystocia include organic causes and functional causes. The organic causes include previous history of cervical amputation, previous history of cervical biopsy, or history of cauterization of the cervix in the case of previous history of obstetrical trauma, or if the person is having the cervical carcinoma or cervical myoma. In those cases, the cervix may fail to dilate. And functional include, in the absence of organic lesions and without any problem, all of a sudden if the cervix fails to dilate, that is known as functional. It may be due to the lack of softening of the cervix during the pregnancy or towards the end of the pregnancy. Actually, for the proper dilatation and effacement of the cervix is supposed to be soft. If it is not soft, the proper dilatation and effacement will not occur. That is the functional. The complications include, there is a chance for annular detachment of the cervix. That is, when the upper segment of the cervix uterus is contracting, and when the lower segment is dilating, if the cervix alone is maintaining in a contracted stage or remaining in a contracted stage, there is a chance for detachment or separation of the cervix from the lower uterine segment. That is one reason. Another one, if there is a chance of, or if the cervical detachment or separation is occurring, that tear may get extended and that may lead to the rupture of the uterus. And another complication is postpartum hemorrhage. If the cervical laceration is getting extended up to the uterine vessels, that may lead to the postpartum hemorrhage. Next is the management of cervical dystocia. If the cervical dystocia is due to the organic causes, we should pose the case for the cesarean section. If it is a functional dystocia, we can give the antispasmodic drugs that may become effective. And if it is not effective, if the antispasmodics are not effective, you can pose the case for the cesarean section. Otherwise, during the course of labor, if the fetus is developing fetal distress, in that case also you can pose the case for the cesarean section. Next condition is generalized tonic contraction or uterine tetany. It is a condition of pronounced retraction occurs involving whole of the uterus up to the internal os of the cervix. Already I have told you that the upper segment of the uterus alone is contracting and the lower segment of the uterus including the cervix is dilating. But here what will happen means the upper segment and lower segment both will contract. So naturally the passage of the baby will not be possible. The causes include failure to overcome the obstruction by powerful contractions of the uterus, and another one is injudicious administration of oxytocins. If there is an obstruction in the passage of the baby, the uterus will try to overcome that obstruction. In that case, it will start to contract vigorously, and that contraction may get extended up to the uterine cervix. That is one reason. And another one is, if you are giving or if you are administering excessive amount of oxytocin or prostaglandin, that may produce the hyperstimulation of the uterus, and that stimulation may get extended up to the lower uterine segment. Next is clinical features. It includes, when the lower segment is getting contracted, naturally the descent of the baby will not occur naturally. So there is a chance for prolonged labor, and the pain also will be severe. And if you are performing the abdominal examination, the uterus will be small, tense and tender due to the severe contraction. And it will be difficult for you to palpate the fetal parts, and fetal heart sound also won't be easily audible. And if you are performing the vaginal examination, you can see the big caput succedaneum, and the vagina will be dry and edematous. The management include, if the lady is having dehydration due to the prolonged labor, if the lady is having dehydration and ketoacidosis, you can treat it by giving Ringer latex solution. And due to the prolonged labor, you can suspect infection. In that case, you can give antibiotics, and severe pain will be there for the lady, so you can give analgesics. And if hypercontractility is induced by the oxytocics, that is, if it is due to the injudicious administration of the oxytocin, you can give the tocolytics. Tocolytics are the drugs which will suppress the uterine contraction. And if oxytocin administration is continuing, immediately you are supposed to stop it. And cesarean section can be done if you are expecting an obstruction. Otherwise, if the baby is dead and if you are not expecting a normal labor, you can go for the destructive operation. Next is precipitate labor. The labor is said to be precipitate when the combined duration of first and second stage is less than 2 hours. That is, within 2 hours, if the delivery of the baby is occurring, that labor is known as the precipitate labor. The causes include presence of strong uterine contraction, small size baby, roomy or spacious pelvis, and minimum soft tissue resistance. And this you can see in the case of, commonly in the case of multiparous woman, because in the multiparous woman, naturally the soft tissue resistance will be less due to the laxity of the pelvic floor muscles. The complications include maternal complications and fetal complications. The maternal complications include laceration of the cervix, vagina and perineum. There is a chance for shock, inversion of the uterus, chance for postpartum hemorrhage is there. There is no time for retraction. Actually, the precipitate labor, the entire process is getting completed in 2 hours. So in the normal labor, what is happening means the uterus will contract and again it will retract. Retraction means it will maintain certain amount of contraction. So naturally, gradually the size of the uterus will decrease. But here in the precipitate labor, it is not getting that time. So its size is not decreasing, or the uterus will be in a relaxed stage. So there is a chance for hemorrhage, and there is a chance for laceration, and due to the presence of lacerations, there is a chance for infection. And one more reason is there for getting infections, that is, sometimes the delivery may occur in the inappropriate surroundings. That is, when the labor pain is starting before getting into the hospital, sometimes during the travel itself, delivery may occur. You might have heard about the auto delivery or delivery inside the bus, all those things. In that case, the delivery is not occurring in a sterile condition or in a clean, sterile area. So there is a chance for infection. The fetal complications include due to the sudden compression of the baby. When the baby is passing all of a sudden through the birth canal, the fetal head will get compressed suddenly. So there is a chance for intracranial hemorrhage. And there is a chance for fetal asphyxia due to the strong uterine contractions. Because when the uterus is contracting strongly, naturally the blood supply to the fetus will decrease, and that may lead to the fetal asphyxia. And lack of immediate resuscitation, because especially if the labor is occurring outside the hospital, immediately the baby may not get the resuscitation. Next is the management. Before the delivery, already if the woman is having a previous history of precipitate labor, In that case, you should admit the woman earlier in the hospital. And during the time of delivery, if you are suspecting the precipitate labor, you can give inhalation anesthesia. You can make the woman to inhale nitrous oxide and oxygen, and that may slow the course of labor. Otherwise, you can give tocolytic agents. Already I have told you that tocolytics are the agents that will decrease the uterine contraction. Retrodin hydrochloride may be effective. And you can perform wide episiotomy so that the lacerations of the perineum and intracranial hemorrhage of the baby can be reduced. After the delivery, you are supposed to examine the baby and the mother for the injuries. For the mother, already I told you that there is a chance for cervical lacerations and injury, and for the baby there is a chance for intracranial hemorrhage. So you should observe the mother and baby for these complications. Next one is tonic uterine contraction and retraction, that is Bandel's ring or pathological retraction ring. Bandel's ring is the formation of a ring-like structure usually between the upper and lower segment of the uterus. This is the spasm of the annular muscles or circular muscles of the uterus, and it will form as like a ring-like structure. And per abdominally, you can feel this ring-like structure if you are palpating. The treatment include the rupture of the uterus. First you should exclude, and if the person is having ketoacidosis and dehydration, you should treat it with ringer lactate solution. And if the woman is having pain, you can give analgesics. And due to the prolonged labor, there is a chance for infection, so you can give antibiotic. And if the contraction is not getting released and if the labor is not getting progressed, you can go for the cesarean section. Thank you for watching this video. Thank you once again.